Welcome back, guys, to the CFB Rundown. I'm one of your hosts, JT Hill, and that is Quinn Beasley over there. And today, we're going to be going through all of the games that have recently happened in a crazy college football weekend. And let's go Ole Miss versus Georgia. Georgia got the win 42-35 in Sanford Stadium. And that was a big game because Georgia, after losing to Alabama, people weren't as high on them, but it's also the SEC, and you're still going to just be at the top of the tier even if you get a loss because that's a quality loss. And that Alabama loss just keeps looking more quality and quality and quality. Ole Miss, though, didn't play that bad. I mean, they only lost by 7, and I think they played their hearts out, but in the end, Georgia got the upper hand. I think I almost just said Carson Beck. Wow. Gunnar Stockton. Great game. He's definitely going back up in the Heisman race. He had 300 yards, 4 touchdowns, but he also did some rushing. He had a rushing touchdown. Only missed 5 passes. Had 60 yards on the ground. And yeah, I think Georgia just they did give up a lot of points in the second half. I think Ole Miss, I don't know how much they scored, but they scored a lot in the first half. And I think this Georgia team is proving that they can definitely make a big run in the college football playoff. And it's because they know how to fight back, and that's what they did against this Ole Miss team. As for Ole Miss, they did not have a bad game. I think they need to finish strong, and they did not do that. That's what Georgia did. I think that's their first loss. They're 6-1, and I still really believe in this Ole Miss team. I think Ole Miss and Georgia can both make the CFP, and yeah, it was a really good game, let me say that, and it came down to the last second, and one team scored over 40, one team scored 35 or more. That's an SEC game that you like to watch, not I don't know, Texas A&M Texas game last year where it was freaking 10-3 the entire game. We like high-scoring SEC games, and that's the games that we like. And that's an SEC game where you're like, okay, I'm going to be watching this game in 5 years, all the highlights, and being like, yeah, that was a good game. So, great win for Georgia. I think this elevates them, especially they got elevated in the AP poll a lot, actually. Not a lot, but they went higher up. Ole Miss went down slightly. And, yeah, not bad for Ole Miss, but very good for Georgia.
Good teams find different ways to win, and Georgia did this. Their last few games, they were in defensive slugfests. There was a lot of concerns in my preview. I talked about how the offense, they kind of dink and dunk their way through. The vertical pass game wasn't really there these past few games, and I said that they're going to need a huge jump from Gunnar Stockton in this vertical pass game, and they got that and even more. The stat that told the story for me, Georgia had 0 punts and 0 turnovers, scored on every possession except for the last one where they kneeled down and won in victory formation. That is pure offensive dominance. They scored on every drive. Gunnar Stockton, in my opinion, had his best game of his career, 26 for 31, 289, 4 touchdowns, 60 yards on the ground, and a rushing touchdown. If he plays like this, I don't know who's beating him. Ole Miss, they played a great game. There was questions. They didn't look too hot against Washington State, but they bounced back. Trinidad Chambliss was fine. They couldn't really run the ball all too well, but Kawan Lacey did have 2 touchdowns. Their wide receiver, I just want to shout him out, Dejon Stribling, 3 receptions, 97 yards, and a touchdown. He had a crazy one-handed catch over the shoulder. Ole Miss, don't keep your head low. You'll be fine. This is your first loss. You looked good doing it. But for Georgia, we can't expect them to play like this every game. But now that we know that they can rely on their defense to get them a victory like they've done the past few games. And they can rely on their offense to win a shootout. Gunnar Stockton won a shootout. And he did this kind of in the Tennessee game, but this was the best game of his career, in my opinion. So, just like JT said, it was another just SEC game, high scoring, something you love to see, just 2 great teams going at it, and this was one of the most exciting games of the day.
And, yeah, Great points there, Quinn. And they did find a way to win that game, and tough way to win that game, but they found a different way than what they had been doing. Let's go Alabama versus Tennessee. This one's not going to be long. Alabama smacked Tennessee 37-20, and I think, yeah, Quinn has it in the notes. Game-changing play was definitely the pick six to end the first half. I did not watch much of this game. Was just watching the ASU game. But I did see that pick six, and I was like, okay, yeah, Alabama's in control. And for Tennessee, you're not going to really come back from that, especially if you're in Tuscaloosa, which, yeah, this Tennessee team has kind of cooled off a little bit. They were very hot starting off the season after getting some big wins. But, yeah, I mean, Ty Simpson just, again, still proving to be a very big Heisman candidate. And Ryan Williams definitely had a breakout game, which wasn't a breakout. This is what a game, if all the people who said Jeremiah was going to do what he was going to do this year, this should be an average game for Jeremiah, for Ryan Williams. But for him this year, that's a breakout game. 5 receptions for 87 yards. That's sad, but Jeremy Bernard, leading rusher on the team as a wide receiver, he did have 5 receptions for 60 yards, but 4 carries for 50 yards. That's actually crazy. And yeah, before the game, Tennessee had the most sacks in the SEC, and then during the game, they had 0 sacks, which is absurd. Alabama's offensive line is crazy. I think they have a top 5 first-round pick. I don't remember
Caden
which
Proctor.
position. Yeah, he's a guard or tackle.
Offensive tackle, wide receiver, fullback. He should be a kick returner.
Okay. But yeah, he's a dog, and I think he's gonna get drafted very high. And yeah, great win for Alabama. They just can keep continuing to keep elevating and elevating and elevating after that horrible Florida State loss that keeps looking worse and worse and worse. Not really for Alabama, because you're gonna lose in this game, and if you can lose week 1, that's one of the best scenarios that you can have, especially if you're Alabama, because they know how to turn their season around. And yeah, I think they could be 11-1 by the end of the season, and big win for them. But yeah, I'm starting to like this Alabama team more and more and more, and that's where it brings me back to the Florida State loss. That was really good for them, because while Florida State looks like horrible right now, if you can have a loss by the end of the season but not have any SEC losses, that is one of the best scenarios that you can be in. And Alabama right now is in a really good spot, especially after beating Georgia. So, yeah, if you're an Alabama fan, I'm happy right now. Quinn, what are your thoughts?
So the score was 37-20. If you just look at the score, you would think it was a pretty dominating game by Alabama, but it really wasn't. The stats were pretty much the same, pretty even. Alabama didn't do what they have been, where they dominate time of possession, dominate third down. Tennessee played a pretty good game, but the reason the score is as lopsided as it is because of the Zabian Brown 99-yard pick six to end the first half. Just literal terms, it was a 14-point swing. It went from Alabama being up 16-14 to them being up 23-7 at half. So 14-point swing right there. And not just that, it was a huge momentum swing. Tennessee did score in the first possession after the half, but really ever since then, Alabama just started to roll. That's where they got their momentum, and they didn't look back ever since then. And just something to note, when some of these teams like Oklahoma, Texas, I'm trying to think of some others, just some teams that can't run the ball, really, they struggle a lot. And Alabama couldn't really run the ball at all this game. Jem Miller was out. Jeremy Bernard was the leading rusher. Jem Miller was out, so I'll give them some grace there. But they couldn't really run the ball all too well, and their offense still looked very functional. I think this is just a testament to how good Ty Simpson is. Another great game, 19 for 29, 253 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Like JT said, Ryan Williams, I don't want to say breakout, but I mean, except for the Wisconsin game, this is probably the best game of the season. 5 receptions for 87 yards. Good bounce back after not touching the ball. Jeremy Bernard definition of consistent, 5 receptions for 60 yards. So, if you're Alabama, like JT said, I think the Florida State loss, if you had to lose any game of the season, that would probably be the best one. One, it's not an SEC play. It won't hurt your chances of getting into the SEC championship. Two, it was a huge wake-up call because while that Florida State loss is aging pretty badly, Florida State doesn't look all too hot. This was just exactly what they needed, just because the effort, the lack of intensity, they just weren't prepared mentally for this game. And ever since then, I know Kalen DeBoer lit them up. And I know Kalen DeBoer, he received a lot of criticism. I know he responded from that. And look what they did after that. 4 straight ranked wins. So Alabama, they're still in the national title picture. That Florida State loss is just way back. They don't even remember that anymore. This is the Alabama we were looking forward to and we're hoping to see. And this is what we get. Alabama, they're a great team still. And for Tennessee, their defense just might not be enough to get them into the playoffs. Their offense is fine with Nico Iamaleava. You could argue that Joey Aguilar in Tennessee has been playing better than Nico Iamaleava. He's been lighting it up at USC ever since the Penn State win. But their offense looks good with Chris Brazzell, but their defense is struggling. Jermon McCoy is still out. They just allow too many points, and I just think that's going to hurt their chances for getting into the playoffs. But great win for Alabama, to say the least.
Okay, I think we're going to go with arguably, no bias, best game of the week, ASU versus Texas Tech, 26-22. The Sun Devils got the win, and ASU definitely saved its season by getting their first top 10 win under Kenny Dillingham, and Texas Tech's dominating Big 12 run officially ends, which does not mean that they're out of it. It just means that they're not undefeated anymore. Like a stat, but not about this game in general, but just about Texas Tech. They never once were losing in any game. And they were 6-0. 6-0 going into this game. They were never losing at all. At all. And they never led in this. They did lead for like 2 minutes, but that's crazy if you're a Texas Tech fan, because that's a shocker. And I think a big reason, I'll get into the stats after this, I think a big reason why Texas Tech lost this game was because they overlooked ASU. And that's arguably one of the biggest mistakes that you could do, especially with Kenny Dillingham as your head coach if you're ASU. And that's like, if you don't know that by now, then you don't know what ASU even did last year. Because when ASU is underdogs, then they perform the best. And I'm not saying that's the case every single game, because we did see the Utah game. But I think a big reason why ASU got this win is because of Sam Leavitt. Now, he is sometimes scary to watch with the ball in his hands, because he definitely throws the ball and does dangerous decisions, but he's risky and it pays off. 300 yards and one passing touchdown to Jordan Tyson. JT had 10 receptions, 105 yards, and a touchdown. Jaron Hamilton had the same amount of yards as Jordan Tyson, but 7 less catches. And that's the Jaron Hamilton that all the ASU fans have been waiting for, because he's a very explosive guy, and he has not had any explosive plays like that all season, you could say. He's had about 2. Definitely a big one against TCU, but yeah, Texas Tech before the game would get 550 yards per game. That was first, and 47.5 points per game. And I think one big reason was ASU, obviously Texas Tech offense was really crazy, but their starting QB was out, Baron Mortensen, so they had to go with, They had to go with Will Hammond. And yeah, I think a big reason is this Texas Tech defense did not look as crazy as I thought it was going to be. Now, one of Texas Tech's best defensive linemen did get injured, and he's injured for the season. But, sorry, I don't know if he's injured for the season.
I think he is out for the season.
Yeah,
Skylar Gilhoward.
I was thinking Baron Mortensen was only out for this game. Yeah, their defensive lineman is out for the season, and that was a big factor. But this defense did not impress me as I thought it was going to be. And don't get me wrong, this was a very low-scoring game throughout the entire game until the fourth quarter. But like I was expecting, with the way that people were talking about this Texas Tech defense, I was expecting them to only hold ASU to like field goals, only 3 points, which they did. But ASU pulled away late in the game, and that shows you the stamina or the longevity of this defense, which Texas Tech has never had to do. They've never been losing in their tenure of this year until this game. And I think that shows you that they did not have the mental and physical ability to take their defense that has to be at the top of their peak against this ASU team into the fourth quarter. And they kind of just like let go. And I think they were kind of worn out a little bit by ASU. It was just back and forth. And then you were like, one of these defenses is going to have to break open. And ASU has that experience of playing Baylor and playing TCU and playing Mississippi State and having very close games into the fourth quarter and having to really capitalize. Texas Tech hasn't had to do that once, and I think that's a big reason why they just let up in the end. And if you're an ASU fan, I'm definitely happy, but they have a very tough matchup this week, and I don't want to go into this week already. But none of these teams are out of it yet. A lot of people thought ASU was out of it after that Utah loss, but they're far from out of it. And if you're a Texas Tech fan, just don't overlook ASU and Kenny Dillingham, and you guys will be better off. But ASU beats number 7 Texas Tech 26-22. Great game. Quinn, what are your thoughts?
This was just a great win for Arizona State. They were a desperate team. This was a must-have. If they lost this game, the path to the Big 12 championship was not impossible, but they would need a lot of help. I mean, a lot of help. And they needed to win this one. They were desperate, and desperate teams often tend to play with their heart out, especially if they're getting coached by Kenny Dillingham. Just to set the scene for how crazy this upset was, this was Texas Tech before this game. They were averaging 558 yards per game. That was first in the country. 47 points per game, that was second. They scored at least 34 in each game. They won each game by 24 points or more. On defense, they allowed 12.2 points per game allowed. Their pass rush had the highest PPF grade, 157 pressure. I actually don't think that's true. It's probably at 57, but 57 pressures, 21 sacks. With Will Hammond under center, they ran for 7.5 yards per carry. This was just, Texas Tech was dominating every team they faced. They came into Mountain America Stadium to face Arizona State and Kenny Dillingham. And Arizona State held Texas Tech to 276 total yards, 22 points. They allowed 26 points, which is the lowest of their season. And their defensive line, that was compared to Miami and Ohio State as top 3, top 5, maybe top 10 defensive lines in the country, got evenly matched with ASU's offensive line, with their best lineman out, Ben Coleman, their second-string center, Wade Helton, and they had to start a redshirt freshman who's never started a single game of his collegiate career at center, and they got evenly matched. In Miami, Miller Moss against Miami's defensive line, he got the ball out quick. Sam Leavitt, he did sometimes, but he didn't really try his hard to get the ball out as quick as possible. No, the offensive line just gave him time. And he did take some sacks, but for the most part, it was a clean pocket probably more than 50% of the time. And this is just, when ASU is hot, when ASU is motivated, when they're doubted, when nobody thinks they're going to win, this is what happens. This is what happened last year, and this is what's happening this year again. So the stat that told the story, ASU had 6 explosive passes. For me, explosive passes is 15 yards or more. Texas Tech only had 1, and that was the Coy Eakin first touchdown. Great throw by Will Hammond. But just Jaron Hamilton's presence, like JT said, was felt in fall camp, in spring camp. Everyone was talking about Jaron Hamilton and how he's going to come and be the deep ball threat. He's going to catch a bunch of go balls from Sam Leavitt, and I think he got his first catch last week against TCU, which was a pretty nice one at that, and this was his breakout game. He made his presence, and I just want to talk about the final 2 minutes. Texas Tech, they go up 26-22, and in a game where ASU dominated statistically from start to finish, a few bad punts, a few special teams blunders, and just good field position by Texas Tech, they took the lead. 2 minutes left, Sam Leavitt and Jordan Tyson on 4th and 2. As an Arizona State fan, there is nobody else in the country that I would want having a 2-minute drill than Sam Leavitt. He's done this countless times. Jordan Tyson, he was playing on one leg out there. Same with Sam Leavitt. He was not even 75%. But Jordan Tyson, he was limping off the field constantly after every play, and he was still playing his heart out. Now to talk about Texas Tech, they'll be fine. Will Hammond struggled, that is true, but he didn't play awful. I think the main concern is their run game. Their main running back, Cameron Dickey, only had 40 yards on the game. That they just didn't really run the ball all too much. Their 2 running backs, Dickey and Williams, only had 12 carries. They saw what Utah and Devin Dampier did against ASU. They ran all over them with the quarterback run. Will Hammond got 15 carries. He tried to do that. It didn't really work. But I guess my key takeaway is ASU, they're legit. They beat the 7th best team, and they didn't play close to their best game offensively. Their red zone offense still struggled. And like I said, Arizona State's defense, when they're motivated and play with intensity, they have the capability to lock up anything. And Texas Tech, they'll be fine. It's your first loss. It's the wake-up call, like JT said. They were kind of sleeping on Arizona State. They saw what Utah did, and he was like, we'll just move on. We play BYU next week. We'll get ready for that. ASU, they were ready to play. No, Texas Tech wasn't. And sometimes if you have the better mental ability, that's what's going to win you football games. So, great win for Arizona State and Texas Tech. You'll be fine.
Mm-hmm. And, drumroll please, we're going to go with Notre Dame and USC. Notre Dame got this one 34-24, and I think Notre Dame is on the running to make the CFP, and a big reason is Jeremiah Love. He has proven to just be a great player, and definitely turning into an NFL prospect. Has a really cool story too. And yeah, he had 24 carries and 230 yards and a touchdown. That was his career high in yards. And while I remember this, I saw Monty, just a little shout out. Division III football player Monty Quinn had 522 yards rushing against Nichols College. He's on Curry College. Just want to let y'all know. Jeremiah Love's career high yards is 228. So that just 300 more yards. I didn't even know that was possible. But shout out to that guy. And Notre Dame's backup running back, Jadarian Price, had a great game too. 13 carries for 87 yards and a rushing touchdown. CJ Carr has been very up and down this season. Went 16 for 26, 140 yards, a touchdown and a pick. Not a great game, but Jedemiah threw 2 picks. Did throw for 330 yards and 2 TDs, but it was not enough to stop Jadarian Price from getting a kick return touchdown, and Notre Dame's defense doing very good this game. Notre Dame's schedule, I'm going to pull that up real quick because I'm pretty sure it's pretty light. They play Boston College. That's an immediate loss. Boston College is 1-5. That's an immediate win. Boston College is 1-5. They play Navy. That'll be a tough game. They play Pittsburgh. Tough game, maybe. Syracuse and Stanford. So their schedule favors them that they could probably win out. I think Pitt and Navy could be a trap game. Pitt almost beat. Well, I don't know. It's hard to see.
I mean, with their new quarterback, they haven't lost with their new quarterback. He's looking
and
pretty good right now.
They almost beat Louisville too. So yeah, that Pitt team, don't count them out. But yeah, I think that USC has been a very up and down team also. They keep entering the top 25, leaving, entering, leaving, entering, leaving, entering. And I think their season to go to the CFP is pretty much done. They are sitting at USC football. They are sitting at 5th in the Big Ten. So their Big Ten conference record is 3-1. So they're not out of it yet. I think having Notre Dame not be in their conference really helps them out. So they're still not out of it, but it's definitely mentally that's a tough loss to lose to Notre Dame. I think USC definitely still has a chance, but they gotta be more consistent. And yeah, big win for Notre Dame, tough for USC, but it's college football. They're still not out of it.
Yeah, so like JT said, shout out Jeremiah Love. He dominated 24 carries for 228 yards and a touchdown, his career high. And just something I want to shout out, the game-changing moment. USC, they're down Jade Mayava and Jacoby Lane in this group. They go downfield. They have a long drive. They finally score a touchdown. They get the lead almost entering the fourth quarter. Their momentum is all on their side. This is the big break that they've been looking for. And then Jadarian Price houses a kickoff return touchdown. If you looked at Jaden Mayava's face, you could know he basically knew we did everything we possibly can, and just, are you kidding me? This is what happens. And ever since then, USC didn't score, and Notre Dame had the momentum for the rest of the game. So Jadarian Price, he had 87 yards rushing, which was very good. He also had a touchdown, but just that kickoff return touchdown, that might go down as the biggest play of Notre Dame's season, and just big-time players making big-time plays. Jeremiah Love, again, great game. CJ Carr didn't have to do much. He didn't play his greatest game, but again, he was just mainly playing complimentary football. He can throw the ball when needed, but he wasn't really needed to. I just want to shout out Notre Dame's cornerback, Leonard Moore. He's true sophomore, often labeled as the best coverage corner in man coverage. And USC has a guy, Mekhi Lemon, projected top 20 pick in this draft. He, I think coming into this game, was the leader in receiving yards. He's just been unstoppable. And Notre Dame, their slot coverage hasn't been great. And their slot corner, Devontae Smith, went out for this game. And Marcus Freeman went up to Moore, and he's like, they have a stud, and you're a stud. We think that the best chance for you to win is if you play in the slot corner, something you haven't done for us yet, but I think that this is the best chance for us to win, and he did that. Mekhi Lemon had 4 receptions for 76 yards, so still a good game, but just to think if Leonard Moore wasn't covering him, he would have had a lot more, and I still think he would have been on the same trajectory that he has, so shout out to him. USC, they need a lot. They have to win out, obviously. They only have one conference loss, but they need probably Oregon, Indiana, and Ohio State to lose multiple games. So they're not going to get in that large spot. They're not going to make the CFP. But for Notre Dame, they have a great chance. This is probably the toughest task. They do play Navy. They do play Pitt. Those are going to be pretty hard games. But 10-2 Notre Dame team, they're going to get in. They look better. I guess offensively they look better than they did last year. And former team that went to the national championship, if they're better offensively, their defense, other than Leonard Moore, hasn't been great. But Notre Dame, if they're 10-2, they're making the playoffs. They had to win this game, and they did. So great job by Marcus Freeman and this Notre Dame squad for winning the big game.
Okay, let's go BYU Utah. Now, let me just get the word straight. This BYU team is legit, and this Utah team is legit. BYU just had the upper hand, and Utah almost got an onside kick return. But yeah, this BYU team is 7-0 and 4-0 in the conference, but I think they just find ways to win. And BYU without play action had -3 passing yards. BYU with play action had 170 passing yards. So that's really just what I wanted to kick it off with. They really like the play action, and Bear Bachmeier, the punter knows how to get it done. He's not like a once-in-a-generation type talent, but he does not turn the ball over a lot, and he's smart with the football, and if you're going to do that, you're going to win games. The running back, LJ Martin, did have a pretty good game, 120 yards on 26 carries. And Devin Dampier, he was not as careful with the football as Bear Bachmeier was, and that's the difference in this game. He had 244 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception, and that interception was costly. This Utah team is still a great team. I think that they were a little bit shooken by that BYU environment, and yeah, Utah still definitely not out of it, but that is a tough loss, especially because you lose to BYU. And they are very, very hot right now, especially since they're the number one team in the conference right now. But I think where I start to be like, okay, where could BYU lose? I think it's at whenever they play at Texas Tech, and I think it's whenever they play at Cincinnati. And the reason that I'm nervous about those games is BYU would probably be favored in all those games because they're higher ranked than all of them, but it's because they're away games, and I don't see them winning both of those games. So yeah, I think those are going to be really tough games for them. But this BYU team, other than that, I think they are one of the candidates to make it to the Big 12 championship. Utah, I didn't watch all this game. I didn't watch most of it, but they're a little inconsistent. They looked like one of the hottest teams, but they ended up losing to Texas Tech and getting blown out, and then they whooped ASU, and then they just lost to BYU. So it's like up and down, but still not out of it, but this BYU team is looking very hot. Quinn, what do you got?
So just Bear Bachmeier, I just want to shout out him. His box score, 13 for 22, 166 yards, and 1 touchdown. It's not a bad stat line. It doesn't pop out the paper like some of these other ones that we've talked about does. But I watched the majority of this game. If you watch him, he played so much better than the stat line as just making so many good decisions. Running the ball too, he had 72 yards. I think he had 3 hurdles, which was insane. Bear Bachmeier, for a true freshman doing this, is just insane work. And he doesn't turn the football over. Somebody on the other side of the football does, Devin Dampier. Just Bear Bachmeier, he does a lot of things that Jake Retzloff can't. Like JT said, 169 play-action passing yards. He might be the best play-action passer in the country. And for BYU, what they did, they leaned on their identity, and Utah did not. Their identity, they're going to come in, run the ball a lot. LJ Martin, he had 26 carries for 122 yards. Bear Bachmeier, he had 72 yards on the ground too. And when they think you're gonna run the ball, they throw in play action, and that's exactly what they did. And they play hard, gritty defense. Utah, their identity coming into this game, they're gonna do a lot of quarterback runs, a lot of running, and just dominate you with your offensive line. Get into not obvious passing situations. 3rd down, 3rd and 3, 3rd and 2, and we're just gonna steamroll you guys. And on defense, we're just gonna play a lot of man coverage, lock up your number 1, your number 2 receivers, and that's not exactly how this game went. BYU's their defense, shout out to them. They forced Devin Dampier to drop back and pass the ball 36 times, which if you're Utah, that is not what you want to do. He did run a little bit, 64 yards. Daniel Bray, the emerging running back, Wayshawn Parker didn't have a great game, but Daniel Bray, 10 carries for 121 yards and 10 touchdowns, over 10 yards a carry. A lot of that came, he had a huge, probably 50-yard run midway through the second half. But just what BYU did and what I said in the preview, what they needed to do is force Dampier into obvious passing situations. And then when you do that, he's going to turn the ball over once or twice. He did that. So just if you're Utah, just your play style, like JT said, their season has been a roller coaster. Their play style just kind of makes it a roller coaster just because they expect their offensive line to dominate week in and week out, and that's kind of what they've been doing in their wins. But in their losses is when BYU's pass rush that hasn't been all too great this season, they got pressure on Dampier, a lot of pressure, and unlike what ASU did when they got pressure, BYU brought him down. BYU tackled Dampier in the backfield. He took a lot of sacks, and that's exactly what BYU wanted to do and did do. So BYU undefeated, like JT said, they have a very backloaded schedule. They play Iowa State, TCU, Texas Tech, and Cincinnati to end the season. I think I mixed up some of the games, but those are the teams they play. Very backloaded schedule. I wouldn't be surprised if they lose all of them. I also wouldn't be surprised if they win all of them. It's the Big 12. It's crazy unpredictable, but BYU undefeated. Utah, they're going to need some help. They're going to need Texas Tech to lose some, Arizona State, BYU, and Cincinnati to lose some, just all the teams in front of them. I don't think they're going to make the Big 12 championship, but you never know. BYU's in a good spot. Undefeated, of course, ranked 11th in the country. Take that as you will. And just overall takeaways, BYU, you say what you want about their strength of schedule. They proved themselves on Saturday.